Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. In this episode, this might just be for the next generation. I don't know. We'll see. We love talking to business owners and entrepreneurs on this show, but I think we're going to talk to their kids a little bit in this episode. Very cool topic. We're bringing an MBA to middle school, and I can't even tell you how excited I am to dive in here. So I have an amazing guest, John Foster, is going to join me, and we're going to talk about his company and how he's bringing MBAs to middle school students. John, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Brandon, thanks so much for having me.
I can't even express to you how excited I am about this. I shared with you before we started recording, I hate the school system. I think it is broken. It's inefficient. It's really good at creating people who sit still and don't think very well. And I feel like you agree with me on that. Or at least you're out to fix it. Maybe you don't agree with me as aggressive as I am, but tell me a little bit about what it means to bring an MBA to middle schoolers. What are you doing?
No, first off, you're right. School's broke. No doubt about it. And yeah, we are trying to bring something that's a fix in a lot of ways. But so what we do is we've learned how to teach these graduate level concepts to kids. So middle school MBA really is an executive MBA for kids. But yet nothing is dumbed down or watered down. It's full bore. You're lucky if your MBA program has all the stuff that we have, really. So yeah, and it's over time we've learned how to bring these things. We've sort of boiled it all down to the most important relevant concepts and then stitched all of those together in an integrated, intuitive fashion, along with a bunch of tools that we built, visual tools and then activities. So kids do and see all these concepts, and at the end of the day, they just get it.
Yeah, it's so cool. And one of the things that struck me was when you said, I'm pretty sure this was before we started recording too, that we don't limit, or the kids' learning ability is not limited. We limit it by only giving them what we give them. And we're talking about middle schoolers. I mean, give me the age range here. We're talking what, 11 to 14 or so?
Yeah, we have 11, 12-year-old kids that can explain business cycles to you and talk to you about capital structure and price structure and pro forma P&Ls, and pitching companies. Yeah.
I mean, I've hired 40, 50, 60-year-olds who've been in business their whole life, and they don't even know what half of those words you just said are. So I love this concept. But before we dive into it a little bit, I'm curious where this came from, because this seems like something completely out of left field that someone would even have the idea to say, let's teach middle schoolers MBA concepts. Where did this come from for you?
Well, it really came. So I did a 30-year career in industry. I got an MBA back in '84, and I worked in the chemical industry for 30 years doing manufacturing and running businesses and M&A and corporate strategy. And along the way, I also volunteered with Junior Achievement to teach business in classrooms. And so just kind of those two things merged. My whole career and all my experiences, I kept plugging into these classroom situations until at one point I just had my own curriculum. And like I told you, one day I was walking to class and I said to myself, why am I teaching 14 kids? I should teach 14,000. And that's when I built this all out on the web. And amazingly, we're able to, this was always a big concern of mine, but we can take this program and just put it into the hands of teachers who have zero background in business or economics, and they take it and do it. And our approach. I told you earlier that we're fulfilling the promise of blended education, which blended means you have a teacher in the classroom, but you're augmenting that with technology. Typically, online education is kids staring at a device, reading a paragraph, answering a question, and clicking next. That's terrible. But the problem is, if you don't know who that student is, you're forced to build your curriculum to the lowest common denominator. When you do that, most of the kids are bored. What we do is we come in super high. We talk to everybody like they're an adult, like they're a grad student. And we count on the teacher in the classroom to know every child, what they know, how fast they can learn, and to bring them up to speed at the appropriate rate. So we depend on the teacher. We do a mind meld with that teacher, and it just works great.
That's an interesting approach too, and I've always noticed that with the school system, because actually that's one of the reasons we homeschool our kids, because we notice that with that mentality, the lowest common denominator, our son in particular, it just gets bored. And like,
Yeah,
but then not only bored, starts to act out, which means he's getting punished when he's actually one of the ones that are
he's not
further.
the problem.
He's not the problem. It's the material and the curriculum. Um,
Yes.
so that's why I find this interesting. But what does this look like when kids kind of go back into their other studies? I mean, does it actually motivate them to pursue learning on their own, or like are there some other side effects and benefits that are actually really positive that you didn't maybe intend to have?
Yeah, teachers tell us all the time that it changes their outlook on the world. They take their studies more seriously. They adopt business lingo into their vocabulary. Um, they take this bigger view of the world because properly done. That's what economics is about. It's not some esoteric, dry, inapplicable nonsense. It's how human beings work with one another to get the stuff they need in on this planet that has scarce resources. It's about humans and what humans do. And so we build all sorts of human interactions into the activities that we do. We always have the chance of failure there. In fact, we're in many cases we're actually promoting the failure, trying to make it. We call them curveballs. We throw them, we trick them, we challenge them. And I had a principal once say, "John, you're setting these kids up to fail, not to succeed." I said, I know. I want them to fail now when it's cheap. But what you actually see is they rise to the occasion. They, you might trick them the first time, but the second and the third time they're looking for it. And somebody who's looking for the trick, that's a mind that's open, it's searching, it wants to know what's out there. And that's a terrific place to be for learning. And it's also the way real life is like. And the more authentic you can make your classroom, the more kids get into it. It's just a fact. Their job at 11, 12, 13 years old is to grow up and be an adult, whether they want to or not. That's the situation they're in, and that's what's happening to them. So when you do something that helps them do that, they just go for it like a duck on a June bug.
That's so interesting. And I'm curious too, because one of the things that come to mind, kind of stemming off that last question, is this methodology is so counterintuitive and countercultural, because this is not how schools are, or how students are typically taught in schools. I have to think about the way that you got this into schools and into the hands of people. What was that journey like from the beginning until now? I mean, how well has this been adopted and perceived by the people, like the principal you said, where they're like, you're teaching kids to fail. What has that been like?
Well, there's a lot of ups and downs, and it's sort of been a slow, steady grind. Um, the we all have um, our view of the education system, and frequently a very negative view, but it's actually extremely heterogeneous, right? There are systems that are abysmal. There are systems that are good. There's schools, individual schools and homeschools that are doing amazing things, and there are ones that aren't so good. And there are a lot of them. There are over 200,000 sixth grade classrooms in the U.S. So, quarter of a million, and that's a huge haystack. And there are tons of beautiful needles in that haystack, no matter how badly you may think the haystack looks. And so our job has been to find those principals and superintendents and teachers who are really ambitious for their kids. And those are our customers. And we just have the greatest set of customers. I wanted to have a B2B business to avoid some of the headaches of B2C. And it's really worked out nicely in that uh, I just love all of our customers. They're super people, and it's just a pleasure every day to deal with them.
Do you find one type of school system adopting it a little easier than the rest? I mean, between, public, private, a more, Montessori approach. Is there any one that stands out for you?
Yeah, certainly the low hanging fruit is elite private schools, and we're in some of the most elite schools around the country. Um, you know, they they're pushed more, they're driven, they have parents with high expectations, they have competitions from other private schools, and so they're more the natural fit, the easy fit, the low hanging fruit. And one of the beautiful things we see is that parents will tell us, you know what? I now have a way to talk to my kids on a new level. I never could explain to them what my business was like or why I went to work every day, but now I can. And we sit at the dinner table and we discuss finances and deals and all sorts of things like. So it's actually brought us closer together and not only that, but the kids appreciate what the parents do, and they're more appreciative of their parents. So it's really a window onto the world that's really, really helpful. And maybe there are more of those kinds of parents in a private school. But now we've been moving, we're starting to talk to school districts and even state school systems. Um, and so those are some enormous fish that we're trying to get into the boat now. So we've crawled along one school, one school, one school, one at a time for several years. But now we're actually going out and fishing in some very deep water. So it's an exciting time.
And what are those conversations like? Because it's their bigger systems. There's probably much more scrutiny on what curriculums are adopted and how the kids are taught. And like we said before, I mean, this is not the way I went to public school. I'm a product of public school. So say what you want about that. This is for sure not how teaching is done in public school. So I'm curious what those conversations are looking like.
Well, so the initial conversation with the decision maker, the principal, the superintendent, whoever, it's usually fairly quick. And it goes something like this. I say middle school MBA, and they say, so, or they say, oh my God, what is that? That's my customer, the one who
Yeah.
just said, oh my God. And that's, from there you decide, do we keep going or do we not? With teachers, the initial thing is, oh, I can't teach that. I don't know a thing about it. And then they see, we show them a few lessons and they're like, okay, I got it. Get out of my classroom. I'm ready to go. So that's how it works. And it's just a matter of saying middle school MBA to the right administrator and seeing the lights go on, and it just goes from there.
So then it sounds like it's really not about changing the minds of people or changing the perception of how people think about it. It's more about just finding, like you said, the really good needles in the haystack who are willing and able to adopt it.
Right now it is.
Yeah.
I I expect that going forward there'll come a time when once we're like, we have cities where we're in almost all the top private schools, because just by word of mouth it's gone from, or maybe an administrator moves from one school to another and brings middle school MBA with them. And and so we have, like, we're in all of these top schools. At some point, a public school parent has to say, are you telling me that my kid could have this for the price of a textbook, and he doesn't? What's up with that? So at some point, I expect pressure from the bottom to push this. But right now, we're working at the top levels.
I think this is so cool, and I'm just obsessed with this because it's it's so needed in the marketplace, in the education system, and I have to think that when you said before that your MBA program will be lucky to have this type of curriculum, um, I believe you first and foremost. I haven't obviously seen it, but it sounds like you're teaching all of the essentials. Do you foresee a time, or is this even part of your vision, where you will have people graduating from, I know you're in middle schools now, who says you can't evolve into a high school curriculum? Do you see people graduating from high school not even needing to go to college because they're more well educated in business from this type of a curriculum?
Well, I think it's that may be a little bit of a stretch, but there are tons of paths other than college. You have, oh, what's the name of it? There's a program out there that, where instead of going to college, kids go in praxis. Praxis. They go into a, I don't know, it's an 18-month program that teaches them um, really concentrated business tools and skills, and almost always lands them with a startup company before the 18 months is over. So these kids, they have a job by the time their classmates graduate college with a bunch of debt and start looking for a job. These kids they have money in the bank. They've worked their way up a ladder. They've been, maybe they started in the startup, and if the startup worked, now they're the director of marketing or production operations manager for the startup. Because, you know as startups when startups work, they just suck. The people who are in them just get pulled up into the high ranks right away. And so there are a lot of avenues like that. So I do think that too many people go to college, and a lot of the college degrees aren't meaningful. But that's not to say that, if you want to go study engineering or business or finance or something like that, that we can have you completely covered with that, in middle school. That would be jumping the shark a little bit.
No, yeah, I think middle school, to have a 14-year-old be hired as your CFO, maybe a little bit of a stretch. I don't know if I'd take that leap. I'd have to really study the curriculum, but
But what we do have is we have kids that can look at a 5-year pro forma P&L and start telling you about that business. Oh, it looks a little iffy that the revenue has gone up that much, but the cost is only go that much. What's the story there? Um, are there enough customers coming into this game to drive this in the future? I mean, things that, you have to stop and think, is this really a child I'm talking to?
I was gonna say, I mean, I've met like business controllers and financial analysts that probably don't have that level of skill. So maybe I'll take back what I just said about the 14-year-old CFO. We'll see what happens, right, John? Well, this has been phenomenal. If someone wants to learn more about your curriculum and what you're doing, what do you have going on? I put your website on the screen. It'll be down below in the show notes as well, wherever you're watching and listening. But what do you have on your website?
Yeah, just come to middleschoolmba.com, and we've got, sample lessons, free lessons, tons of information, places you can contact me there. Their reviews, you name it. There's a lot of stuff on the website. So, yeah, just go there, and from there, contact me, or whatever you want to do, wherever you want to go with it. You can, one thing, that if you're a parent, you can just, take it to your principal or school system and say, I want my kid to have this. And not only can your kid get it, but other classmates can get it, and it won't cost you anything because you're already paying the school system to provide these things. So that's a great move for a parent to make.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like if you want to really mess up your family game night of Monopoly and have your kids beat you, you'll get this in their schools real quick.
So true. And in fact, there are homeschoolers that make this like a game night. They pull out the negotiating lesson and come up with some scenarios, and the kids run that around. So yeah. You're right on the mark there.
I'll tell you what, it'll definitely be in our curriculum. My oldest is 5, so we're not there yet. We're not middle school age yet, but this is for sure a very cool tool. John, I can't thank you enough for coming here today and sharing your story. This is a very unique episode that I'm excited to have.
Thank you, Brandon. It's really been great meeting you.
Now, I do love to end the episodes with a question, and it's actually a question that you provide to the listener. I mean, we went in a number of different directions here, so I don't want to put too much context on this, but we believe at What If that powerful questions get you powerful answers. So for the listener, for the entrepreneur or the business owner out there who maybe has kids or maybe wants to introduce concepts like this to their staff, I mean, what is that powerful question that you want them to walk away from this episode with so that they can get that powerful answer to grow their business?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, we're jumping kids ahead 5 to 10 years in their understanding of the world and of business and economics, and we're doing it in a particular way with a certain platform, and I would like to see that spread across other topics, history, math, whatever. And so my question is, what if we jumped every kid ahead 5 to 10 years from where they are now in every subject? What if every kid left high school with a really solid understanding of calculus or differential equations? Even every kid, not the geniuses, but we made calculus accessible to kids who were in the ninth grade, to the point that they walked around with an integration function in their head when they looked at wind blowing across a field or something. We could do that.
That sounds really cool and also really scary. I never got along with calculus very well, but that is a great question. I love that question. If you enjoyed this episode, first of all, go check out middleschoolmba.com. But wherever you're watching and listening, make sure you subscribe so we can continue to bring these episodes to you every single day of the week and hear about topics like this that maybe you've never considered, but can not only help your business get to the next level, but help your family and your kids and your relationships get to that next level and always strive to be just a little bit better. Thanks for joining us on this one. We'll see you on the next episode of Harmonious at Lunch.